Carney is trying to move fast, of course, and we know what's happening with the United States, leading to a lot of issues and concerns about the Canadian economy. Carney's trying to break down interprovincial barriers. He also is trying to push through these mega projects as well, get everybody on board. Not always an easy thing in a federation like Canada. So how is he doing so far, and what could he do to try and perhaps ease the road ahead? Let's bring in former Conservative Cabinet Minister James Moore, who's standing by in beautiful Port Moody, British Columbia. Good to have you with us, James, on this Friday. Thanks for this.
Thank you.
I know you've written a piece for CTV News, and you got 3 points. And I want to start with Justin Trudeau and the gun buyback program, which has been highly controversial. This is one of those things that you say Mark Carney could pivot on. You say it's costly, it's ineffective, and really he should scrap it. Give us your sense of why that's necessary.
In public opinion research, when people are asked why it is that they have a strong view of Mark Carney, what are the virtues of his leadership that they like so far as prime minister, I think what people have liked is that he's shown a great deal of pragmatism. He showed that in the course of his leadership. You know, Mark Carney, when he was a private citizen, was in favor of the carbon tax, but he ran for the Liberal leadership saying, get rid of the carbon tax, and he's delivered on that promise. So he's shown an ability to pivot away from Liberal policies that were either really unpopular with Canadians or really ineffective. And so, what I wrote for CTV is a piece where I put forward 3 other ideas that I have that I think would make a lot of sense to pivot away from. The gun buyback program was put in place by the Liberal government under Justin Trudeau. Mark Carney wasn't part of that policy. He inherited this policy. And the policy, frankly, doesn't work. The government of Justin Trudeau budgeted $200 million for a gun buyback program. It's now spiraling up to $500 million. We'll probably close out on $1 billion. And they've so far bought back less than 10% of the guns that they had targeted. The RCMP says it's ineffectual. The government of Ontario is not participating in it because they think it's appropriately a waste of resources. The idea that Canadians are going to give back their guns and they're supposed to do it through Canada Post and they would be housed at Canada Post offices across the country. It doesn't work in practice. It doesn't make the country safer. It's costing an extraordinary amount of money that could be spent more efficiently. And I think an objective analysis of the program, Liberals can still be in favor of gun control. They can still have their bona fides as the pro-gun control party. But this particular program, scrapping it would save hundreds of millions of dollars and it would probably make the country safer.
Yeah, former Conservative Cabinet Minister James Moore is my guest here. We're talking about 3 things that he thinks the Carney government can do to pivot right now to help them as they govern Canada. The first one was to get rid of the gun buyback program. And you rightly point out, James, a lot of questions about the effectiveness of this program, whether it's working or not, and the fact that it is very expensive and it is highly controversial. Let me ask you about the federal electric vehicle mandate. Again, that is this mandate which says that, all cars in Canada basically need to be electric within the next 10 years, give or take. And again, we're seeing sort of real world examples how that just seems a little unrealistic right now. This is another thing you say the Carney government could pivot on and just get rid of it.
Yeah, again, a Justin Trudeau policy that was brought in place during the Biden administration, not Trump 47, and it doesn't make sense again today for a whole bunch of reasons, including the tariff dynamic with the United States, the fact that if we are going to have reciprocal tariffs against the United States, that the number of electronic vehicles, zero emission vehicles, ZEVs, is going to be quite scarce and they're going to be really expensive. So the idea that 20% of new vehicle sales next year should be EVs, when only 7% of EV sales, or only 7% of all new vehicle sales in March of this year were EVs. So we're expecting to go from 7% this year to 20% next year, up to 100% by 2035, is not realistic in the marketplace. So when the policy again was brought in by Justin Trudeau, which has now been inherited by Mark Carney, it doesn't make sense in the current environment, given our relationship with the United States, given the availability of electronic vehicles, and given the softness of the the zero emission vehicle marketplace in Canada. The EV mandate, frankly, doesn't make sense. EVs are great in an urban environment. They're great commuter cars. The cabin experience is great because there's the latest technology, that there's low road noise. There's all kinds of reasons why EVs make a lot of sense in terms of their cost of operation. But in Canada, a circumpolar nation with long winters, Canadians want choice. And the idea that the government of Canada will force people, and certainly force car dealerships, to to mandate them to have 100% of EV sales by 2035, 20% by next year, doesn't make sense in the marketplace, doesn't make sense given our trade relationship, and it reduces consumer choice, increases cost burdens, and it should be scrapped.
And it is this sort of what you might call social engineering through government intervention, James, that can drive some voters crazy.
Well, yeah, I mean, Ottawa knows best doesn't make sense. But again, EVs are great vehicles, and a lot of Canadians who have them really love them. And in urban environments, they make a lot of sense. But the low-end torque of EVs makes it really difficult in the snow. The range battery anxiety in suburban and rural parts of this country, where you don't know what your range is going to be if you go below 10, 20, 30 degrees centigrade in the winter months. They're not necessarily reliable in the snow for a lot of people who do a lot of long-haul driving in those winter months. Give people more choice. If you want to incent people to shift to EVs, that's fine. There are all kinds of policies you can put in place. But the idea of forcing sales to be 20, 30, and 100% by 2035 across the country doesn't make sense, especially when the availability is going to be low because of the auto dynamic with the United States and the tariff picture. It does not make sense.
James Moore is joining me. He's giving us 3 pivots that he thinks the Carney government should seriously consider as they continue to move forward with their agenda. Number 1 was getting rid of the gun buyback program. Number 2, the electric vehicle mandate. And number 3 is this kind of confusing and messy ban on TikTok in Canada, hugely popular social media platform, of course. The Americans are going in a different direction. Donald Trump keeps issuing postponement after postponement. In the situation here in Canada, we're still kind of not sure how it's all going to play out. Do you think that TikTok ban should be rescinded?
It doesn't make sense what the government is trying to do. What they've said that they want to do, which is to protect the privacy of Canadians, protect the privacy of users, makes sense. But that should apply to all social media platforms. It should apply to all digital platforms, whether it's Meta, whether it's TikTok, whether it's YouTube, whether it's portable gaming. All of these platforms and all of these software interactions with consumers, all of them involve some form of data harvesting. A lot of concern has been raised about TikTok, and that's fine. There should be a debate about that. And TikTok should be appropriately and effectively regulated in Canada. We should probably have data housing within the country. We should probably have effective transparency legislation when it comes to when people are giving consent to these platforms in order to use them, that people have clarity about what it is that they're consenting to in terms of the data transaction with these platforms. That makes sense. But what the government has done, because TikTok has become a high-profile platform in the data harvesting debate, certainly in the United States, is they've forced TikTok to leave Canada as a corporation, but not as an app. People can still use the TikTok app, and all the concerns that people have about data harvesting on all of social media platforms is going to persist. So what they've said is TikTok as a company should leave Canada, which means that hundreds of people are going to lose their jobs. Thousands of people are going to lose their jobs because of all the giving that TikTok has done into small business startups. They've given millions of dollars over the years to the arts and culture sector across the country. So what the Liberals have done, in a very sort of ham-handed move, is push TikTok as a company out of the country, but the app will continue to sit on the App Store. People continue to use the app. So we have all of the pain and none of the gain. All of the pain of getting rid of a company out of the country and getting rid of all of their charitable giving, getting rid of all of their partnership with small business, getting rid of all of their partnership with the cultural sectors in the country who really need to have this kind of cooperation and investment in the culture sector. We see the Toronto International Film Festival. We see the Juno Awards not getting sponsorship dollars from TikTok anymore. So artists are going to lose, small businesses are going to lose, consumers are going to lose, and none of the privacy issues are going to be addressed. So they've gotten the horse behind the wagon, and they've gotten this backwards, and I think it deserves a rethink. So again, all 3 of these policies, whether the EV mandate, the gun buyback program, or the TikTok and privacy policy, all of these are policies that were put in place by Justin Trudeau, badly thought out, and don't make sense in 2025. And Mark Carney has shown a real willingness to show flexibility and pragmatism when it comes to addressing the faults of the past. And these are 3 policies that I think don't make any sense in 2025, and the government should reconsider.
Conservative advice for Mark Carney by a former Conservative cabinet minister who served a number of portfolios in the Stephen Harper government. James Moore joining us from Port Moody. You can find out a lot more online at ctvnews.ca, where James has written some great in-depth analysis on those 3 pivot points he thinks the Carney government should pivot on. Hey, James, great to see you as always. Thanks for taking time for CTV.
Pleasure.